Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about 5 women from the Bible who we can learn true strength from. Something that I've always loved about the Bible, which in Hebrew we call the Tanakh, which stands for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which in English translates to Torah, prophets, and writings, is how amazing the women in it are. They are so layered, they have incredible stories, and they are so strong. Reading the women in the Bible is so inspiring to me. They take initiative. They also do such incredible things for the Jewish people, and I absolutely find inspiration for my own life in reading the Tanakh and reading the Bible. I also want to quickly mention one of my absolute favorite things to read is called Eshet Chayil, which is also known as Proverbs 31, and that is incredibly inspiring to me. And one of the reasons I absolutely love reading Eshet Chayil, which translates to a woman of valor, is that whenever I start to feel insecure about my looks, reading that reminds me of what my role is as a woman and what my role is as a wife. And it really is more about being a strong person and a good person. And that is so much more important than what I'm actually looking like. So I absolutely love reading that. But getting back to the point of what this video is about. If you're new to my channel, I'm a religious Jew. I talk about commentary, fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and opera, all from a conservative and classic perspective. And if you think that's something that you would like to hear more about, feel free to subscribe and join the Classic Crew. But one of the things that really drives me crazy is when people act like religion is patriarchal and oppressive. And if you are more traditional and if you are religious, you have internalized misogyny from the Bible. And I hate that. I hate it because it's so not true. Today, I will be sharing with you 5 women that shows how the Bible truly views women and what we as women can learn from them. So let's get into it. The first woman I want to talk about today is Ruth. I love the story of Ruth. I grew up hearing it every year on Shavuos, which is the holiday that celebrates the receiving of the Torah. And so every year we would read Ruth at synagogue. Ruth and her sister Orpah were Moabite princesses, and a Jewish man and his wife and his 2 children moved from Israel, where there was a famine, to Moab because they wanted to escape what was going on there and that there was not enough food. And while they were there, their sons, the 2 sons, married Ruth and Orpah. After that marriage, the father and the 2 sons passed away. And Naomi turned to her daughters-in-law and she said, "You should return to your family. You are still young and you could still be Moabite princesses. This would be better for you to do than what I'm going to do, which is return to Israel." And Orpah said, "Okay, I love you and I appreciate that, but I'm going to return to my family." And Ruth said, "I will be going with you." Ruth accepted Judaism as her own. She said, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." And so she went with Naomi, even though she knew that she was actually going to be taking on a much harder life, given that the 2 of them didn't have any money, and she wasn't going to be a princess, and there was a famine in the land. She still returned with her mother-in-law to Israel. And when they went there, she needed to gather food for her and her mother-in-law. So she sat down at a field and encountered a man named Boaz, who was actually the owner of the field. And he took an immediate liking to her, and he also taught her many of the rules of Judaism, which are all about charity and all about how he wasn't allowed to collect certain things on his property, so that if he dropped them, for example, while he was collecting grains, he had to leave them there so that the poor and the hungry could collect them for themselves. And Ruth collected so many things because Boaz educated her and told her to take those things for herself. And so when she did, she returned home, and Naomi told her, "You should go to Boaz. He clearly likes you, and he also happens to be a familial relation." So at the time, if a woman's husband died, she could marry a familial relation, and that could continue the line of her husband. So she went to Boaz and she offered herself to him as a wife, and he said, "I would love to marry you, and you are a very good woman," because he was a bit older than she was, and he loved that she was attracted to him despite the fact that he was a bit older than she was. And he said to her, "I would love to marry you, but you do have a closer familial relationship. So I will go and talk to that man and see if he would like to marry you first." So Boaz went and he spoke to this other relation. He did not want to marry Ruth, and Boaz and Ruth got married, and they were very happy. And from their line came King David. And King David, of course, is an incredibly important figure in Judaism and in Christianity. They were the great-grandparents of David, in fact. And one of the really cool things about the story is, number one, that there is an entire book just about a woman. Now, you can talk about the fact that you might think that the Bible and that religious texts are patriarchal, but there are entire books in the Tanakh, another one which I will mention also, that are titled after women, that are about women being heroines. And Ruth is the heroine of the story. And the reason her story is so important is because she's a convert. And through her line, King David came. And the reason I think that's so important to remember is that Ruth accepted the Jewish people as her nation, and she accepted the Jewish God as her God. And it didn't matter that she wasn't born Jewish. Converting is about accepting the community and accepting your religion and accepting your faith. And that is what's important about being a Jew. And it doesn't matter if you were born Jewish. If you accept your role as a Jew as part of the community and accept God as your God and the laws as your laws, that's what matters. And I love that, especially even the fact that the Moabites were a distinct enemy of the Jews. And again, it has nothing to do with the ethnicity of the Moabites, because King David's ancestor was technically a Moabite. But it didn't matter because she was a Jew, because she accepted Judaism. But she left everything she knew behind to pursue a faith that mattered to her, to pursue her beliefs, and to stay with her mother-in-law and respect her. And that is so inspiring, that she left everything she knew for her faith. Number 2 is the story of Esther. So I've read Esther every year during Purim, which is a holiday where we celebrate that the Jews were not destroyed by Ahasuerus and Haman, who were of the Persian Empire. And Esther is an incredible figure in Jewish history. In the story of Esther, Haman is the henchman of the king Ahasuerus, and he hates the Jews. He hates them because a man named Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. Everyone else will bow to him, but Mordecai will not. And Mordecai is Esther's uncle. And Haman comes to the king and tells him he wants an edict to kill all of the Jews on a certain day. And Ahasuerus agrees. Ahasuerus is also at the same time looking for a queen to replace the queen he murdered, he did not like, and he wants a new queen. And Esther does not want to marry him, but she's beautiful and he loves her and he falls in love with her immediately, and she becomes his queen. And Mordecai tells her, don't tell him that you're Jewish, you have an opportunity here. It's possible that you will need to be in this position in the future. So Esther hides her identity, and when she finds out that the Jews are to be destroyed, she comes to the king without permission, which was not allowed in that time, and he allows her to come in and she invites him to dinner. During that dinner, he offers her half of his kingdom. She says no, but she invites him to another dinner, and this time she asks him to bring Haman. When Haman comes into their second dinner, Ahasuerus again offers Esther half of his kingdom, and she says no, but she says what she does want is for him to save her people and her. And Ahasuerus is very confused because he doesn't know that Esther is Jewish. So she explains that Haman is trying to kill her people and in turn killing the queen. And Ahasuerus comes to her and he says, well, I can't reverse my edict, but I can allow the Jews to fight back, because the edict was that all of the neighboring peoples would be allowed to kill the Jews, and they fight back and the Jews are saved. And because of Esther's bravery, the Jewish people survived. Esther is so incredible. She lives as a secret agent, essentially, in the king's castle as the queen, hiding her identity till the moment is right so that she can save the Jews. And she knows what she has to do, and that is to save her people. And I can't read that story without thinking about how inspiring that is, that she was in the most adverse of situations, and she still was able to save the people, and she still put her people and her faith before herself. And that is something I think we can look at every day for inspiration. And you can look at this and think to yourself, the women in biblical literature are not weak. They're not controlled by others. They're not oppressed. They are strong, independent women. And it's so important for us to look to them for guidance. Number 3 is Deborah or Deborah. Deborah is written of in prophets, and she was a leader of the Jewish people. She was a female judge and a prophetess. And she was the one who beat Yavin, who was the king of Canaan and who had oppressed the Jewish people for many, many years. She sent a message to a man named Barak to gather 10,000 troops and have them go to Mount Tabor. The leader of Yavin's army is named Sisera, and he brought his troops to the river below, and Deborah and Barak defeated him. And after that, there were 40 years of peace in the land. She was also a mother and a wife. Deborah is an incredible figure. She was a female judge, and you would think at that period of time that there would not be female judges or female prophets. And she was. She was a prophetess, she was a judge, and she was a mother and a wife. She was so strong, and she knew what the Jewish people needed, and she accomplished it. And it's an incredible thing to see that the Bible, the Tanakh, writes about a woman in a position of power who accomplishes so much, and who also does it while being a wife and a mother. I honestly can't think of anything more inspiring than that. Deborah is an incredibly inspiring woman in the Bible, and if you want to think that God is oppressive or patriarchal, why would he give the gift of prophecy to a woman? And why would she be in a position of power as a judge? Number 4 is Yael. So Yael is in the same story actually as Deborah and Barak, and she is the one who kills Sisera. So Sisera arrives at her husband's home. Her husband doesn't really have any fight with Yavin or with Sisera. He doesn't care, despite the fact that Yavin and Sisera have been oppressing Jews all over the country, and she feels sympathy for the Jews. So when Sisera arrived at her husband's tent, Yael invited him into her own tent, and when he asked for water, she gave him milk. And as he fell asleep, she took a stake from the tent and drove it through his temple and instantly killed him. And that gave her the credit of defeating Yavin's army. Yael took action against a man who had oppressed the Jews for many years, and she knew that she needed to defeat him in this way. And she did it. Not a man, not anyone else. She did it. She took matters into her own hands, and she took action. And she was such a strong woman in that moment, and she saved many Israelites in the process. I also want to mention that on Rosh Hashanah, when we blow the shofar, we actually do 100 different sounds to represent the 100 cries of Sisera's mother, because we recognize that even though Sisera was an evil man, he was still someone's child. So we don't take that stuff lightly, but it is something that Yael is still considered a hero and a heroine for her act. The last person I want to talk about today is Yehudit. Now, Yehudit is not technically in the Bible, but her story takes place during the Maccabean revolt. She took inspiration from Yael. When the Jews were under siege by Holofernes, she took action so that the Jews would survive. He decided to starve the inhabitants of the city, and they were very close to giving in, to giving themselves up to his army. And Yehudit said to the commanders, "Let me take inspiration from Yael. I will go to Holofernes, and I will do something similar to what Yael did, and I will save the people of this city." Yehudit went to Holofernes. She told him that she could give him information about what was going on in the city. Eventually, he began to trust her. And one evening, when he believed that they were about to take the city, she came into him and gave him wine and cheese, and he fell asleep. After he fell asleep, she took his sword and she chopped off his head. And in doing so, she saved the people and the Jews of the city. Now, the cool thing about Yehudit is that she's in our position. She took inspiration from the women of the Bible herself. And that is kind of cool to see, that we're taking inspiration from her and she's taking inspiration from the women before her. And she was able to save the Jewish people as a strong Jewish woman who took action and who knew what she needed to do. She could use her feminine graces and charms in order to ingratiate herself to this man and then to take the action that needed to be taken so that she could save the Jewish people. And just like some other women on this list, she was able to use her feminine wiles essentially to accomplish what she needed to accomplish. But the fact of the matter is that these women are so strong, and it's so obvious that the Bible views them as strong people. Not just as women who they can brush aside, but as strong people who deserve honor. And that is inspiring. Not just because these women themselves were inspiring, but because Judaism and Christianity view women through this perspective, that we are strong. And that is really important to know. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Which of these women is most inspiring to you? I absolutely love taking a look at the women in the Torah, in the Bible, in Tanakh, and I would love to hear your thoughts as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would love to have you join the classic crew here. Make sure to ring that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. I'd love it if you would join my newsletter. I send that out about 2 times a month, and it's just going to be a little dose of classic in your inbox. If you'd like to follow me on social media, it's at Classically Abby, absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!